Here's one of the saddest headlines I've ever seen. How to keep traffic moving. An airport puts hugs on a timer. The new rule at a New Zealand airport, the Times reported on November 1st, limits curbside embraces to 3 minutes. Now, the point of the new policy at Dunedin Airport in New Zealand is to keep traffic moving in the drop-off zone and redirect longer goodbyes to the car park. The signs created a global buzz, with some feeling indignant and others saying that a 3-minute hug is actually an awkwardly long time for an embrace. Airport personnel, for their part, want to assure the traveling public that even a 20-second hug is enough for releasing those happy hormones, oxytocin and serotonin. But the headline still makes me sad. I think it has something to do with my fear that our planet, our societies, our communities are losing some essential kindness, that regulating and quantifying human embrace is a deeper sign of how parsimonious we've become with affection. And then this week I saw another headline. I remember back in 2001, on the Shabbat after 9/11, Miriam and I had been dating about 2 years, and we were both still in seminary in Los Angeles. Feeling the despair that so many Americans were experiencing, we decided we needed to hear from a rabbi's rabbi that Shabbos. So we got in our car that Friday evening and we drove from Pico Robertson to Westwood, near the UCLA campus, to Sinai Temple. David Wolpe is one of the great orators of our generation. If anyone could explain this, give it meaning, help us understand how such a thing could happen, surely he could do it. I have no recollection of what Rabbi Wolpe said that night, but I do recall feeling unsatisfied. I wanted the rabbi to channel my fear, my dismay, my rage into something useful, something that would dull the pain and restore my sense of purpose. In other words, I wanted to feel like the trauma of that horrific attack would not define me, nor rob me of my desire to see other people as fundamentally capable of goodness and grace. But grief takes time. It just does. And no words, before we're ready to hear them, can make the pain stop, nor magically restore our sense of compassion, affection, and calm. Each year after Tisha B'Av, the saddest day on the Jewish calendar, we have Shabbat Nachamu, the Shabbat of consolation. But Nachamu, let's not forget, is not the completion of that process. It's really just the beginning. There are 6 more weeks of consolation each year before we can experience the renewal of Rosh Hashanah. Now, today is not Tisha B'Av, but it is the anniversary of Kristallnacht, the brutal pogrom which began the Holocaust in earnest and sent my grandfather packing from Idar-Oberstein, Germany. It is also, a colleague reminded me, the 35th anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall. This country is not Germany, and thus far it is not Germany of November 9th, 1938. But it's also not Germany of November 9th, 1989, when hope at the crumbling of walls, the possibilities of broader, more inclusive democracy began to sweep through Eastern Europe. If we needed any reminder of that, we need only view the footage of mob violence directed against Jews in the streets of Amsterdam this week. We live in a time when fear, cynicism, and distrust are on the rise. That doesn't mean that I have some deep insight today on these election results, what they mean, what they say about America and its values, whether the social contract to which many of us are devoted is still intact. There are plenty prognosticating, making sweeping claims about what Harris's defeat and Trump's re-election says about the US. But not me, not today. It's too soon. We're too close. So if you came for explanations and conclusions, I'm sorry to disappoint. But if you came to shul today to be with people you care about, to sing and pray and witness a young man coming of age, if you came to break bread together, to learn Torah, to observe Shabbat not in isolation but in community, in other words, if you decided that what you need today is a hug, then I'm very glad that you're here. And I want you to know that so long as they're consensual, there are no time limits at Beth Am on hugging. To be fair, some in this room may be satisfied with the election results. I'm glad that you're here too. Because while I have no simple answers for us today about what this election means or where we might go from here, I have a great deal of clarity about what the synagogue means, what Judaism offers, about the possibilities of holy gathering. Airport drop-off points are places of transition. They need to keep traffic flowing so that people can embark on their journeys and make their flights on time. Shabbat services are not about punctuality. I mean, who gets to shul on time? But more, the purpose of Shabbat is to dwell in a land beyond time, in Hegelian terms, a cathedral in time. Today we have nowhere to go because we're already here. Shabbat comes into the world at the very beginning, but the observance of Shabbat awaits a particular people, our people, and that people begin its formation this week in Parashat Lech. On the one hand, the Parsha is about Abraham's journey to the Promised Land. It's a portion about travel, and the truth is the journey began last week in Parashat Noach, when the family moved from Mesopotamia to the apex of the Fertile Crescent. Vayikach Terach et Avram beno. Terach took his son Abram, his grandson Lot, the son of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarai, the wife of his son Abram, and they set out together from Ur of the Chaldeans for the land of Canaan, but when they came as far as Haran, they settled there. Lech Lecha begins just after the Torah tells us that Abraham's father Terach has died. Terach wasn't there when God called out to Avram. But the text suggests that even if he were still alive, their parting may not have been amicable. These two men would not have needed 3 minutes for any final embrace. Josh told you about the famous midrash of Abraham destroying his father's idols and his salvation in the fiery furnace. Josh's focus, very thoughtfully, was on the emerging relationship between Abraham and God. He wants to know, why did Abraham listen to God in the first place? But another question that we might ask here is not why Abraham is moving toward God, toward the Promised Land, but what Abraham is moving from. Our midrashic tradition assumes that the trauma of the fiery furnace and his own family's complicity in his attempted murder were enough to abandon most everything he had known. Lech lecha, me'artzecha, u'mimoladetcha, u'mibeit avicha, el ha'aretz asher ar'eka. Go forth from your land, from the place of your birth, from your father's house, to this land that I'm going to show you. And Abraham doesn't come to Canaan alone. He has a wife and a nephew and some other folks with him. But Abraham is pretty clearly coming to make a new life, to get some distance from, shall we say, an unhealthy environment. The blessing that Avraham receives, even as he's traveling to a physical place, is not simply about that place, but about the family, the people he and Sarah are to create, a people that would one day inherit not only Shabbat, but a tradition of ethical norms and ritual practices. Ve'escha legoy gadol, ve'avarechacha, I will make of you a great nation and I will bless you. Ve'agadla shemecha, ve'yeh bracha, and I will make your name great and you shall be a blessing. The blessing of Lech Lecha is the blessing of peoplehood, and I want to suggest to you today that being a people, a Jewish people, or an American people is not a static enterprise. Community is hard, messy, and each of us, no matter where we come from, carries the hopes, fears, and sometimes the trauma of generations past. Abraham needed some time and distance from his own past. His journey, his faith, gave him some perspective he might not have had. But his life is not without challenges. There are trials, wars, tests of faith in God and fidelity to his wife. His relationship to his sons may well have been complicated by his own relationship with his father. And there's plenty of evidence that our ancestors carry with them not only a legacy of discovery, faith, community, and love, but also mistrust and nepotism and abandonment. The Jewish people are messy because family is messy, because community is messy. We, the human race, are the ultimate paradox. We are social beings. Lo tov heyot adam levado, God says in creating the second human, it is not good for man to be alone. We need one another. And we need people who see the world as we do, who share our values. But community, society, civilization require more than that too. The very fact of our individuality, our uniqueness, means that we are always sorting and resorting our connection to others, because there's never just one thing that we have in common. And there's never a lack of dissimilarities, even among our closest friends or family members. The best societies organize themselves not around any one idea, but around the singular truth that people matter more than any one idea. That's the takeaway from the film Join or Die that we screened on Sunday, which brought nearly 100 people together downstairs in our social hall from the shul, from our neighborhood, from Johns Hopkins, on the eve of the election, to reflect on Robert Putnam's Torah of Social Capital. If you couldn't come to our event, you can watch it on Netflix now, and I hope you do, because while I don't yet know what this election means for us, I'm clear that we as a nation are forgetting how to be together, how to embrace one another with tenderness and compassion. Bit by bit, and surely exacerbated by the pandemic, we are surrendering to isolation, insularity, and fear. Putnam's simple and profound argument is that to save the nation, to improve the world, the very best thing we can do is join a club or a shul. So if your instinct today was to ride this week out in community, you're on the right track. You know exactly what you need, even if your rabbi has no clue yet what exactly we should do next. Shabbat Shalom.